Hi there guys, welcome to the final wrap-up video of the Micro Four Thirds journey. So what happened was 6 weeks ago, I took my entire 35mm full frame system and traded it in for a Micro Four Thirds system. And I decided to go for the Panasonic G9 because from what I could see, it best suited my style of photography. Now bear in mind, I do mostly corporate photography at this stage, plus a bit of architecture, plus a little bit of industrial, plus a little bit of fashion. Generally, I'm dealing with corporate clients most of the time. Okay, so instead of doing a side-by-side comparison, I'm going to speak from my heart, let you know how this journey for me has been. I've shot with the camera in all sorts of locations, in all sorts of conditions, and I want to give you my rundown on how I found the Micro Four Thirds system compared to the full frame 35mm DSLR. Okay. Firstly, what I'm not going to cover are the things that don't really suit me as a professional. They are awesome features and they are nice gadgets and nice things to have in case you need it, but they are not essential to my workflow. First one is the touch screen. Apparently it's amazing. I used it for a couple of days when I first got the camera, but I shut it off and I haven't used it since. I don't need it for my workflow. The second thing is the post-focusing feature, whereby you shoot a picture and it actually shoots, I don't know, 30 or 40 pictures within a 2-second period, and it changes its focus from the back, from the furthest subject away to the closest subject in front, and it merges that into one file, and then afterwards you can go and post focus. You can click on the background or point on the background, that'll pop into focus, point on the foreground, anywhere in between, and you can choose that as your final image. Something that I probably won't use either, so I'm not going to chat about that. The video on this camera is amazing. I've done 1 or 2 short clips with it, but I haven't explored it enough to be able to chat to you about that. Also, if I'm going to go into video, I'm probably going to get the Panasonic Lumix GH5 or the GH5S, as that is a real workhorse and a beast of a video camera. I do have to mention though that this camera can shoot 180 frames a second in video mode on full HD. Of course, it can also shoot 4K at 60 frames a second, which is wonderful. Right, let's get into the photographic features and let me chat you through them. Firstly, that 80 megapixel mode whereby it takes 8 different pictures and instantly merges them together in the body instantly, and it gives you either a JPEG or a RAW image at 80 megapixels is a fantastic feature. Definitely something I'm going to use when I need to shoot higher resolution. Of course, you need to have the camera on a tripod. Of course, your subject matter needs to be still, not moving, because it is taking multiple pictures of the same scene, stitching them together, overlaying them, and you're coming out with that beautiful massive file. And that feature on this camera, I'm giving an A+. The autofocus on this camera is simply amazing. It's way quicker than I will ever need, and I gave it an A rating. Right, if you're a sports shooter and you're into frames per second, this does autofocus tracking at 20 frames a second at full resolution. Or if you're not interested in following focus, if you're happy to put it on manual focus or stay on one point, it's giving you 60 full frame pictures in 1 second. I give that an A+. Right, what's quite important for me is navigation, how you get around the body of the camera, where the controls are, is it logically laid out, and can you make changes quickly? And indeed on this camera you can. It's got beautiful features, chunky buttons, and it just makes you feel right at home. I gave it an A+. Okay, what's very important for me is the feel of the camera in the hand, how it sits, how it feels, how it's weighted. Depending on how active you are with your camera, you might be jumping over walls, you might be getting underneath vehicles, you might be hopping into helicopters, I don't know. It feels wonderful in the hand. I'm not going to say that it's the best feeling camera ever. There are cameras that are slightly bigger that just ooze in your hand, but this one is wonderful and I'm going to give it a solid B. Right, one of the most important features are the lenses that are available for this system. And I'm not talking about using, say, Canon lenses with an adapter. Talking about native lenses that work great straight on the body of this camera. All right, if you think of the Micro Four Thirds family, it's massive. There are loads of lenses available, loads of manual focus lenses, which will be great for video, and a lot of new updated lenses that are fantastic with autofocus. The Leica lenses that I've been using, the Panasonic Leica lenses, I cannot fault. They are unbelievable and amongst the sharpest lenses, and I'm getting the sharpest image out of this camera that I've ever got out of any system before. I'm giving that an A+. Something, of course, that's very important to all of us is the cost of the system. Now, if you look at the lenses that you can get for this system, plus the cost of the body, look, I'm averaging here, but you're looking at, for every single item, whether it's a body or a lens, between $1,000 to $1,500 US. Now, if you put a nice kit together with some long lenses, some wide lenses, you're looking at a considerable saving compared to the similar lenses on either the Nikon or the Canon system, or for that matter, a lot of others. So cost-wise and quality-wise, you're really getting a great deal. I'm giving it an A+. One of the Micro Four Thirds biggest advantages is your saving in weight and size. If I was a sports or fashion photographer and I had a couple of bodies and a 70 to 200 millimeter lens and a 300 and a 400, and I put those into one bag, wow, it would be a sizable bag and it would be a mission to get around or to travel with. This system, you're getting everything at, I would guess, 1/8 of the weight and perhaps 1/4 of the size. That's a big plus in my books. I'm giving that one an A. Something that I use on every single shoot is image stabilization. If you're shooting in a darkish venue and you don't want to use flash or some other type of artificial light and you're just using your ambient light, often you're shooting at, let's say, 20th of a second, 10th of a second, perhaps wide open with your lens. And for me, it's vital to have at least 3 stops of vibration compensation. This system is giving you like 5.5 or 6.5 stops of stabilization. Of course, it depends whether your lens is stabilized as well as the stabilization in the body. But when there are 2 that are working together, you're getting about 6.5 stops, which is unbelievable for me. That, of course, is going to get an A+. All right, there are a couple of things that I cannot comment on, and those are the accessories. Yes, there are some, but compared to Nikon or Canon, who've been around for so many years, obviously you're going to get fewer accessories. As the digital bubble grows, of course, people are going to make accessories that are specifically targeted at each individual system, and the price of them is going to come down, that is for certain. But I'm going to say at this stage, because I'm not sure of the amount of accessories there will be going forward, I'll give the accessories a B. Fortunately for me, this camera system has worked perfectly so far. I've even used it on the initial firmware. I haven't done a firmware upgrade, and I have loved every single thing about it. I cannot fault it. However, unfortunately, I just cannot tell you what their support is like. I haven't had anything go wrong, so I do not know their turnaround times. I do not know how quickly they process a fault or an inquiry, or how willing they are to help the photographer out. So I'm just going to give it a B and play it a bit safe. So now I'm going to move on to the sensor and the sensor size. Would I prefer more than 20 megapixels? I would. 24 would be just about right. 28 would be fantastic. 36 would be unbelievable. However, bear in mind, guys, that we're working with a Micro Four Thirds system. It's a small sensor. Most of these things that have been given an A+ are A+ because it's a small sensor, and you can get away with a lot of advantages. So I'm going to give the sensor size, as far as megapixels is concerned, a C. If it was 24 megapixels, I'd give it perhaps a B. If it was 36, I'd give it an A+. Then the last thing to do with the sensor is low light shooting. From my experience in the field, I haven't wanted to push this camera further than 1600 ISO. I just haven't felt comfortable doing it, and that's kind of my barrier. I'm comfortable shooting on 800. If I take it to 1600, it's okay. I know I'm going to get a reasonable result out of it, but it just doesn't sit that easily with me. If I could shoot on 3200 ISO without a problem and without a thought of it perhaps having an effect on the image quality, I would give it an A. But in this case, because we're looking at around about 1600 max, I'm going to give it a C. Okay, so in its most simplistic form, if you take all of my A pluses, A's, B's, C's, and you put them together, and we do a little bit of maths, which I'm not particularly good at, but I did it, you come out with an A. If I had to compare this system to my 35mm system, remember I worked on Nikon and Canon, and I had the Sony A7 system for a short time, I would put those at a B, maybe a B+. This system is giving me an A. So, if I had to go back and make the decision again, would I switch to Micro Four Thirds? Absolutely. I find the system amazing. I find the advantages far outweigh the few disadvantages that there are. Now, something very important, guys, and I'm going to piggyback on what I heard some other vlogger saying. He said that if a new system makes you take better pictures, then you've done the right thing. And I can't agree more. If you're the type of photographer who's shooting for yourself, and perhaps you're selling your images or you're providing images to a stock library, if you're content that the system is making you take better pictures, you've won. If you're the type of photographer like me who gets given assignments from clients and you have to go out and shoot, and at the end of the day you're taking those images back to that client, if they are happy that you have become a better photographer through the system, then you've won. I've had a fantastic time playing with this camera, and I look forward to acquiring a couple of extra lenses. My next venture is going to be the GH5 or perhaps the GH5S, and I'm going to explore the video capabilities, and I'll get back to you with a series not too far off. Thanks, guys.